Part 10. A Middle School Cartoonist. Author, Mao Do Sde Mao. Chapter 91. Makoto-kun is really. Rina looked at the new issue of Shounen Jump with a helpless expression on her face, and complained feebly, "Can't you get along well with your brother, Slime Elite Dai's sister Control? This kind of title is really. Humph. It's that kid again." Ogata Ag took Rina's expression into his eyes, and his face was a little gloomy. "Rina, it's time to rest, let's continue practicing new songs now." "Huh. I'll answer the phone, and you won't have to worry about it. Take some rest." "Thank you, brother." Producer Ogata. Rina saw Ogata Ag's serious eyes, realized her mistake, stuck out her tongue, and immediately changed her tune. "Hello, Teacher Murong. I wonder if you are well? How is the award show going?" "Well, there will be a live broadcast in the evening." Instead of educating Rina, Ogata Ag picked up the phone and turned around and went out. After Rina heard the call from Teacher Murong, she just looked up in confusion, and then continued to lower her head and read the comics. Rina didn't read comics before. It was only after Makoto Takahashi became a manga artist that Rina started to get into comics. But Rina is now starting to like comics, especially Full Steel, which is being serialized by Makoto Takahashi. What a pity, when Lee didn't appear in this issue of Steel. Rina put down the comic with some regret, picked up her phone and was about to call Takahashi Makoto, but when she saw the time displayed on her phone, Rina gave up this idea. At this time, Chang-kun should be drawing comics, right? Let's forget it. "Rina, have you rested enough?" Ogata Ag looked a little unnatural, holding the phone tightly in his hand, and came to Rina. "That's it for today's practice. I really didn't expect that brat was really." "Huh? Brother, what happened to Chang-kun again?" Rina looked at Ogata Ag curiously, with a smile on her face. It seemed like it was Teacher Murong's call just now, right? Could it be that Teacher Murong still wants Chang-kun to? Are you going to give up comics and become a musician? He, Teacher Murong is really persistent. This matter. Ogata Ag looked at the smile on Rina's face and turned his head unnaturally. After a moment of silence, he let out a long sigh. "You will know about it tonight. Although I am a little unhappy, but now I have to call that brat." At night, Rina tilted her head and watched Ogata Ag turn around and leave angrily, with confusion on her face. "Oh, take the move. This move is called Moon Shadow Kangkong Sword. Makoto Takahashi is not fighting anyone, but is drawing the rest of the Higurashi chapter of Higurashi. It's just that the names of moves that Takahashi Makoto uttered from time to time made everyone in the studio a little uneasy. Lee Byungyan and Ding Ding, who were closest to Takahashi Makoto, looked at each other and quietly moved back. "Next, it's time to build up your fighting spirit and use the ultimate secret weapon. King of Black Flame, take my ultimate move that shakes the world." Makoto Takahashi had been brewing for a long time, preparing to use the super weapon. While killing, the phone suddenly rang. Makoto Takahashi, who was unhappy with his skills being interrupted, grabbed his phone and said, "Hey, if it's my cat, I'll let him go to hell and repent 10,000 times, huh? This phone number is..." Looking at the caller ID, Takahashi Makoto hesitated for a moment, and finally threw the phone aside and continued drawing comics, but it became much quieter. Lee Byungyan looked at Takahashi Makoto's unusual behavior, with a helpless smile on his face. Ding Ding, who was confused, gently poked Lee Byungyan next to him and asked in a low voice, "Why doesn't Cheng answer the phone?" Ding Ding glanced at Makoto Takahashi secretly and found that the other person was still drawing comics, but the phone kept ringing. "Who is calling?" Based on Cheng's reaction, it's probably... Lee Benjian was about to explain, but was interrupted by Makoto Takahashi. "A slime elite who doesn't know how to be tired," because the phone kept ringing. Takahashi Makoto finally answered the phone unbearably, and opened the Demon King's domain with full pressure. Don't you know that it is immoral to disturb the Demon King's pleasure? O goddess Slime, you are calling, have you already considered surrendering? Huh. For the sake of Her Royal Highness, if you surrender, I might leave a whole body for you. Remember to watch the awards show tonight, you are as annoying as ever. Ogata Ag completely ignored Takahashi Makoto's words. After telling Takahashi Makoto the time and channel, he hung up the phone. Are the slime elites about to evolve into bosses already? Makoto Takahashi looked at the phone that was hung up, feeling despised. It's incredible. The brother of Her Highness the Princess has only started to evolve now. What a failure. And the two of you over there, if you have time to whisper to each other to increase each other's favorability, you might as well speed up and complete it. Say it at work. Hey, Lee Byungyan and Ding Ding smiled coquettishly, and continued to draw comics with their heads down. The creators of the above 3 award-winning pieces of music are all the same person. The host began to introduce the award-winning works, with a deliberately exaggerated expression on his face, and this creator is not what a famous musician, just a high school student named Takahashi Makoto. The corner of Makoto Takahashi's mouth twitched. After a moment of silence, he immediately picked up the phone and called Teacher Murongzai. Teacher, what's going on? The Dark World, didn't you promise me not to make it public? Takahashi Makoto was a little angry. You are violating the agreement made by the 3 tribes before, and you will be hunted all over the world. Even so, I will fight for my dream. On the other end of the phone, Murongzai was even more excited than Takahashi Makoto. Your talent in music will definitely inherit my legacy in the future and become an outstanding, no, you will definitely become a greater musician than me. As long as I can achieve this goal, I am willing to pay any price, including my life. Believe me, as long as you stop comics and start studying music carefully, you will become a peerless music master. It is my lifelong dream to cultivate such an outstanding disciple. A dream that costs your life? I have one too, Takahashi Makoto roared into the phone. I want to become a pit killer and torturer. The tyrant who killed countless readers and established an absolute reign of terror, the devil who unified the comics world. And you are an old man at your age, you have already missed the age of Shuyunibu. If you get treatment quickly, we can still talk normally. There are always countless setbacks and difficulties in life. Playing dumb and acting stupid may be a helpless act. This is the Chuyunibu you explained to me before. And Chuyunibu has no age limit. Murongzai has fallen into an inexplicable frenzy. The gears of fate have begun to turn. My most outstanding disciple, you can't resist. Even if you hate me, complain about me, and even kill your master in the future, I will not regret it. In order to let the world witness the birth of a great legendary musician, I am willing to give everything, even if it means falling into the endless dark abyss. Calcium oxide, Takahashi Makoto cursed depressedly and hung up the phone decisively. Before Takahashi Makoto could say anything, the phone rang again. The person who called this time was Princess Rina. Seeing his phone vibrating non-stop, Takahashi Makoto quickly picked up the phone. Makoto, congratulations. Princess Rina sent her blessings, but her tone was a little depressed. Did Princess Rina see it too? Takahashi Makoto listened to Rina's somewhat lost tone, a little confused, and vaguely felt that something was wrong. Yeah, I saw it, Makoto. Rina's long silence made Takahashi Makoto a little uneasy. Just when he was about to say something, he heard Rina's voice. Hey, Makoto, I've been chasing you before. When I learned that you became a cartoonist, I suddenly felt that the distance between you and me was widened. At that time, I was really worried that you would leave me. Leave Her Highness the Princess? This kind of thing. Makoto, listen to me, okay? Rina's voice was full of grievances and pleading, which made Takahashi Makoto a little inexplicably irritated. Rina likes Makoto-kun very much, She likes the Makoto-kun who stood up to protect Rina and said strange words. When she learned that Makoto-kun became a cartoonist, Rina was happy, but she also began to worried that Makoto-kun would leave Rina. In order to pursue Makoto-kun, Rina decided to become a singer. Although Rina knows that an idol singer cannot compare to a popular cartoonist, but perhaps such a Rina will narrow the gap between her and Makoto-kun. Rina has been working hard and has been chasing Makoto-kun. The things that happened during the school festival before made Rina happy, but she became more worried. Makoto-kun is not only good at drawing cartoons, but also good at music. Talent, through this awards ceremony, has been recognized by everyone. Such Shinjun has become more and more dazzling, but Rina feels that the distance between her and Shinjun is getting farther and farther. This distance is even so large that Rina can't shorten it even if she tries her best. If Shinjun is the sun that lights up the sky, then Rina is just a little star. Even if that little star keeps flashing, it can't light up the whole sky after all. In the past few years, Rina has been chasing Shinjun, but she feels farther and farther away from Shinjun, so. Rina has been crying. Takahashi Makoto wanted to speak several times, but he couldn't say anything, so he could only listen silently. Rina seemed to be unable to control herself. She tried her best to suppress her tears. After saying "I'm sorry," she hung up the phone. Is this because of the pride of the princess, and the inferiority complex derived from it? Takahashi Makoto whispered, looking at the phone in a daze. Just when Lee Binjian was about to ask something, Takahashi Makoto threw his phone to the ground and roared, "Don't be ridiculous. This kind of thing, since you have become the princess designated by the Demon King, you should stay in the castle. Watching the Demon King slaughter brave heroes again and again, and finally marrying the one-eyed Demon King for world peace and living a shameless life, this is the real script. What is going on now?" "Aiken, what happened?" Ding Ding asked the furious Takahashi Makoto under the admiring eyes of many assistants. "Humph. Nothing. It's just that a stupid princess has too much inferiority and has delusions." Takahashi Makoto snorted coldly, turned around and looked at the assistants. "I'll give you 3 days off, and practice the peerless martial arts in seclusion. As for me, in these 3 days, I will smash the inferiority of that stupid princess, and then capture her and imprison her in the Demon King's castle for 10,000 years. A middle school cartoonist. Author, Mao. Chapter 92. It only takes a few hours to destroy the world, maybe even a few minutes, but for something like waking up the stupid princess, 3 days is enough. That's right, the idiot princess is hidden in this barrier. Makoto Takahashi looked at the villa with an uneasy smile on his face. He turned to Sabas behind him and ordered, "Then Sabas Si-chan, just prepare as you said before. If you want to kidnap the princess, you must be prepared to be hunted down." "I understand, young master." Sebastian bowed slightly and left with a smile on his face. Makoto Takahashi walked to the door of the villa, took a deep breath, and then performed the long-lost skill lion's roar technique. This is the way to open the slime boss barrier. Gods can predetermine fate, but people can change their destiny. As the Demon King, I, the Phoenix Academy Fierce Master, in my name, summon the Judgment Legion to come, sacrifice the earth with blood, and comfort the sky with life. When the trumpet of judgment stops ringing, a new dawn has arrived, the door to hell is closed again, and the world will return to chaos. Barrier, open. Just after Makoto Takahashi finished reciting this spell, Eiji Ogata opened the door directly and looked at Makoto Takahashi with black lines on his head. "You're finally here." Eiji Ogata looked a little gloomy. He looked at Makoto Takahashi at the door and didn't say much. He didn't shut out Makoto Takahashi as usual, but turned sideways to let Takahashi Makoto. Chiao Cheng entered the home. "Although I hate you, at this time, maybe only you can." "Humph. It's useless to talk. Makoto Takahashi passed by Ogata Eiji. The purpose of my coming this time is to capture the escaped princess and prepare to take her back to the Demon King's castle and imprison her for life. So it's best don't stop me, Ogata Slime Elite Leader. Ogata Eiji's mouth twitched as he watched Takahashi Makoto walk up the stairs, and shook his head helplessly. Ogata Eiji knows what Rina's problem is now. Only Takahashi Makoto can solve this kind of thing. Is his identity as an older brother still inferior to the existence of a lover? But, in front of a brother, blatantly saying that he wants to kidnap and imprison his sister, is this really okay? Ogata Eiji sighed, suppressed the urge to call the police, sat on the sofa and started smoking. Takahashi Makoto walked to Princess Rina's door and reached out to knock on the door, but when his hand reached into the air, he stopped. Knocking on doors. Makoto Takahashi felt that since he wanted to be a demon king, do he still need to worry about these etiquette? So he decisively gave up the gentlemanly option of knocking on the door and chose to kick the door open. Oh ha! Explosive kick. Makoto-kun. Rina, whose eyes were a little red and swollen, did not scream at Makoto Takahashi, who suddenly broke into the door. She did not curl up on the bed and kept saying words like "don't come over," but her face was ashen. Looking at Makoto Takahashi, that's all. Hey, this kind of reaction is really meaningless. Makoto Takahashi curled his lips with some disdain, unleashed the pressure of the Demon King, and approached Rina with heavy steps, while a weird smile appeared on his face in a very cooperative manner. Hey, find the stupid princess. Rina looked up at Makoto Takahashi, without a trace of smile on her face. She reacted calmly to Makoto Takahashi's words. After being silent for a long time, she slowly lowered her head and asked in a hoarse voice, how did you? Don't think that because the Ogata Slime Elite has evolved into a boss, it can resist His Majesty the Demon King. Even if it evolves into a boss, it is just a slime after all. The smile on Takahashi Makoto's face disappeared instantly, and he picked up Rina's hands, hugged her tightly, and whispered softly, "What a stupid princess." Rina struggled a little at first, but found that she couldn't break free from Takahashi Makoto's arms, so she slowly gave up her resistance and let Takahashi Makoto hold her. Longing is the emotion furthest from understanding. Makoto Takahashi started to persuade Rina slowly like a demon. Her Highness the Princess has always longed for the existence known as the Demon King. She stumbled and was covered with scars on the way to pursue, but still refuses to stop and wants to continue chasing. When Rina heard what Makoto Takahashi said, she was shocked and struggled violently again. The tears on her face began to spread wantonly again. Takahashi Makoto slowly let go of his hand and gently wiped the tears on Rina's face. The expression on his face was extremely serious. "My princess, no one stands in the sky from the beginning. No matter you or me, not even God. The so-called man is to become strong for someone. Women are the same, in watching from the sidelines is completely meaningless. Since you have chosen to embark on the path of chasing the devil, abandon those boring emotions and persevere." "But Rina wanted to say something, but Makoto Takahashi covered her mouth with her hand and stopped her. "I know what you are going to say. Don't forget, I am His Majesty the Demon King who has mastered the master-level mind-reading skill." Makoto Takahashi showed an apologetic smile on his face and gently stroked Rina's head. "No matter how tiny a star is, as long as it keeps shining, it can also become a beacon that lights up the road of hope in life. Makoto-kun." Rina pushed Takahashi Makoto's hand away, stopped crying, and hugged Takahashi Makoto tightly. "Although I am the Demon King, I was once the princess's guardian knight." Takahashi Makoto knelt on one knee, took out a box from his arms, and slowly opened it. This box contains the knight's medal, which is the contract between the knight and the princess. Willing to dedicate everything to Her Highness, this is the knight's lifelong wish. "Princess Rina, can I become your knight again and protect you for the rest of your life?" Looking at the ring in the box, Rina covered her mouth in surprise, and tears flowed out of her eyes again, but this time she was crying with joy. But now I have become the Demon King, so. After Takahashi Makoto put the ring on Rina, he suddenly stood up and picked her up. From today on, I will imprison you in my castle. Don't expect any heroic prince to come and save you. The Demon King, Fengguangai Yuankuma, is not something that ordinary people can defeat. There is only one way to destroy the Demon King. What do you want to do to my sister, you bastard? Just when Takahashi Makoto wanted to tell him how to destroy the Demon King, Ogata Eiji suddenly shouted at the door with a gloomy face, especially when he saw Takahashi Makoto holding Rina in a princess hug. He immediately became angry and roared, "Put my sister down." Tisk. Did it really appear? Slime is really a place that destroys the atmosphere. And using a slime leader like this to protect the princess, is this the final test? It's surprisingly easy. Takahashi Makoto moved his steps, trying to find a breakthrough, but found that Ogata Eiji was guarding the door, staring at him. Oh! This is, in anger, the potential was stimulated and the magic eye was opened. And it turned out to be Professor Wiseman's magic eye. Interesting. Because I was worried that you would do something rude to my sister, I have been listening at the door before. I will not interfere too much in your relationship, but... Ogata Eiji's face gradually calmed down, and he rubbed his head with a headache. You don't seem to be adults yet? It's too early for you to get married privately. Are you going to use the word spirit technique to attack this time? Takahashi Makoto sneered and looked at Ogata Eiji with disdain, but the same trick is useless against the Saint Seiya. What's more, I am the Demon King. Ogata Slime Leader, with your fighting power, can you stop me? You are too sweet, sweeter than Tianjin fried chestnuts. Today I will take the princess away. This is the fate of the Demon King. No one can stop it. It seems that we can't communicate with words. Ogata Eiji shook his head helplessly and said to the shadow behind him, then I'll leave it to you, Miss Bodyguard. Oh, there are ambushes. Takahashi Makoto looked at the woman who came out of the shadows with some surprise on his face. I didn't even notice this. This hidden method, well, this way of holding the sword, reminds me of an opponent I once killed. My sister, the captain of Rina's personal guard, thank you for your care. The woman didn't smile at all, and looked at Takahashi Makoto with cold eyes. Then let me see how strong you are under the alias Zero. Makoto. Rina struggled in Takahashi Makoto's arms and wanted to get down. Others didn't know, but Rina knew very well that this bodyguard of hers was very powerful. Although she was confident in Takahashi Makoto's strength, Takahashi Makoto was just a cartoonist. How could he be an opponent of such a professional? And, by the way, why did she run away? Rina wanted to explain something, but was interrupted by Takahashi Makoto. It's useless to say more. Today you will be my prisoner, and no one can save you, Takahashi Makoto said to Rina viciously, and as the commander of the devil, His Majesty is very persistent about the contract. Her Highness has signed the contract before, so. There is a flaw. The bodyguard rushed to Takahashi Makoto quickly, aiming at Takahashi Makoto's right hand holding Rina. This touch. Although Takahashi Makoto dodged the opponent's attack in time, his clothes were still cut by the sword. Feeling the cold touch on his arm, Takahashi Makoto looked at him angrily. Hey, you actually used a sharp sword. If I hadn't dodged it before, the injured person would be Princess Rina. You actually didn't care about the comfort of Her Royal Highness the Princess. Are you really a hero who wants to defeat the Demon King? How can you be more dangerous than me, the Demon King? The girl didn't speak, but gently waved the long sword in her hand, constantly adjusting her breathing, preparing to attack again. I thought it was just a bird in a cage, but I didn't expect it to be a little tiger. Takahashi Makoto sighed and retreated to the window. The moonlight tonight doesn't seem to be suitable for fighting, Sebastian. As soon as Takahashi Makoto finished speaking, he jumped down from the window holding Rina. The female bodyguard was a little surprised by Takahashi Makoto's move. She immediately came to the window, but saw Takahashi Makoto holding Rina, falling into a big net and landing safely. In this way, Princess, Takahashi Makoto announced loudly, staring at Ogata Ag and blinking his right eye, you will become the property of my majesty, the Demon King Howinkuma. Ha 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 ha. No need to chase, the female bodyguard looked at Takahashi Makoto, who was laughing so hard that he almost burst into laughter. Without saying a word, she walked to the window and prepared to chase him, but was stopped by Ogata Ag. The female bodyguard looked at Ogata Ag in confusion, but saw that Ogata Ag was smiling. Although there are some unexpected changes, the plan has been completed, right? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A middle school cartoonist. Author, MaleProtagonist Mao. Chapter 93. By the way, that's Rina Ogata. Tintin looked at Rina, who was busy in the kitchen, the corner of his mouth twitched, and turned to look at Makoto Takahashi. A big star is actually wearing an apron and cooking in the kitchen, is it possible? Seeing Tintin wagging his little finger, Makoto Takahashi sighed helplessly. After nodding, he shook his head again and said nothing. Thank you for your hard work, everyone. Dinner is ready. In the kitchen, Rina stretched out her head and greeted everyone with a smile. I gave it a try this time. Is the journey to hell about to begin again? Makoto Takahashi looked pale, and after sighing, he slowly walked to the dining table like an old man in his old age. I hope I can still see the sun rise tomorrow. World, the time has come to protect the Demon King you have chosen. With the absolute defense barrier, accept the test from the incarnation of chaos once again. Master, do you need to invite Mr. Yoshida to the banquet? Sebastian smiled, that smile was like a kind angel. Takahashi Makoto's eyes lit up after hearing this, and just when he was about to nod, Sebastian made a new suggestion, and the two cartoonists next door. I have been taking care of them and invited them to come over for dinner. It's also a way of saying thank you. Well, you're right, Sabas-chan. Makoto Takahashi nodded in agreement, with a twisted smile of despair on his face. That's right. If you want me to go to hell, why not let the whole world go with it? Enter Honkai Destruction. As the Demon King's pet, my beloved cat must follow the Demon King's footsteps, and the Ajumumenha duo and their families, the so-called companions, are to work together with each other. Pull each other's hind legs and lead each other to hell. Mr. Yoshida has received the invitation and will arrive in about a quarter of an hour. Sebastian put down the phone in his hand and looked at Makoto Takahashi with a smile. As for Ajumumenha, because Miss Azu is still there. It's probably a bit inconvenient to attend class, but... Ugh. What a pity, Makoto Takahashi complained regretfully. I originally thought that we could take advantage of this opportunity to evolve Landai into a higher level existence. What a pity. But what? There are still 3 assistants at Mumenjai in Aiken, so it can be regarded as an unexpected gain. Sebastian paused, then Master, do you need to invite Mr. Ag, the new wife? Let's forget about this. Makoto Takahashi shook his head and rejected Sebastian's proposal, with a determined look in his eyes. The existence of the King of Black Flame will definitely be defeated by me personally, including poisoning and assassination. You may be able to achieve a temporary victory, but it will also raise the flag of your own defeat. In the war, although beheading is a very handsome surprise attack, such an approach puts yourself on the weak side, which is not what I want. What you pursue? To defeat the enemy in a dignified manner is the most respectful way to treat your recognized opponent. Makoto-kun, the food doesn't taste good when it's cold, Rina looked at the master and the servant who were discussing something, put her hands on her hips, pouted and complained with some dissatisfaction, "And what are you discussing? You're calculating again. What's going on? Huh? Chang Kun always acts like a conspirator at this time. Wait a moment, come to hell. Well, there are still a few guests who came to attend the Demon King's banquet." Makoto Takahashi gave Sabas a look and motioned for him to stop the assistants from eating and make arrangements for the follow-up. Something like that. However, Takahashi Makoto himself walked up to Rina and said, "As for Her Royal Highness's cooking, we still need some disguise. Anyway, leave this matter to me. The secret skill of a super chef, deadly disguise." When Yoshida arrived at Makoto Takahashi's house, he found that the house was full of people. Landai and the yellow-haired glasses guy looked a little ugly, but Gangpyo on the side smiled expectantly. From time to time, he stretched his head to look at the kitchen and sniffed hard. "Minotaur, are you still so leisurely at this time?" Yoshida looked at the smiling Minotaur, secretly glanced at the Ajumumenha duo who were discussing over there, and kindly reminded, "At the serialization meeting, Detective was nominated in half. Although it was not cut in half this time, you still have to pay attention to it, maybe it will be next time." "Yoshida-senpai, no. It can't be." Minotaur's face suddenly became a little ugly. Although the publication was suspended for a period of time due to Makoto-kun being hospitalized, the ranking has stabilized now, so there should be no problem, right? "Who knows this? But as an editor, you have to work harder," Yoshida kindly comforted, making Minato even more anxious. Seeing Minato's somewhat flustered look, Yoshida showed a happy smile. This kind of happiness based on the pain of others is really refreshing. Yoshida felt very happy when he treated the little sea otter like this before. Now that he is treating a new colleague, Yoshida still feels very happy. Yoshida turned his eyes to Takahashi Makoto, who had just come out of the kitchen, and looked him up and down. "I wonder if it would have made me happier if I had been replaced by Chang? Huh? This kind of look is, hee, I found a compatriot." Switch to the S mode. Makoto Takahashi noticed Yoshida's twinkling eyes, then looked at the pale Minato next to him, with a strange smile on his face. "Now that everyone is here, let's start enjoying this last supper. Well, at this time, I have received a temporary summons from the residents of another world, so I will come as soon as I can." Takahashi Makoto answered the phone and left the table. "But when I left, I looked at the expectant looks on everyone's faces, raised the corners of my mouth, and smiled very happily." Because his back was turned to everyone, no one noticed anything unusual about Makoto Takahashi. "Are you the one who summoned the Demon King this time? Are the sacrifices for 100 people ready? Have you bought all the Hyoinshin?" Makoto Takahashi held the phone and still said something with unknown meaning. Everyone shook their heads and started eating dinner. "Hey, Chang, I haven't contacted you in a long time. Your latest steal is very good, I watched it with excitement. But in comparison, Han-chan I can't understand at all." The person on the phone was really Brother Fusion, who is currently serializing. "Is it convenient for you to talk now? I have something to ask you." "Well, I know about this." "I refuse." Takahashi-chan listened to Brother Fukuda's story and roughly understood the whole story. "Silver-haired brother, did you understand something wrong? You helped them before, because the editorial department's actions are incorrect, so they are resisting. But the reason why they are not providing assistance now is because they are not strong enough. Wrong choices lead to failure, and weak people without strength will suffer in the war. Lose everything. But if they continue like this..." The silver-haired guy on the other side of the phone was still a little unwilling to give up and continued to try to persuade Takahashi Makoto, "Detective will really be cut in half. So what? The comics don't look good, their popularity has dropped, and their rankings in the reader survey have dropped in half. These are the cartoonists themselves and have nothing to do with the readers. What can we help? Help them draw comics and come up with plots. Don't be too self-righteous. In this war, we must put aside our prejudices and fight against the invasion of external enemies, but now it is an internal war, and since we are not strong enough, we cannot escape the fate of defeat. If they can't get back on their feet, enter the battlefield again, and compete with us, that's their own business. All we can do is watch from the sidelines, that's all. Is that really so? Alas. Fukuda naturally knew what Takahashi Makoto said, and sighed with some disappointment. What you said is the same as what teacher Nyaizuma said. Is this really a matter of strength? If Aiken Mumanji's comics are cut in half, then... Tisk, 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 at this time, do you still have time to care about others? Silver-haired brother, Makoto Takahashi activated the taunting skill. Instead of worrying about this, you might as well think about your own problems. Now Black Flame and the king is in the middle of a stalemate battle, and he doesn't pay attention to you at all. Take advantage of this opportunity and struggle hard. After the king of Black Flame and I decide the outcome, you will be the next loser. What about Uncle Nakai and the others? You're really not welcome, Cheng. The silver-haired guy over there snorted a little unhappily. I will convey your idea to Nakai. And, wait a minute, your screams over there, what's going on? Has the Demon King's banquet finally begun? Don't worry, you are just enjoying an unparalleled performance. Makoto Takahashi showed a smile on his face and said to Fukuda, then that's it, Aiken Mumu, I will give some suggestions on yes side, but according to the principle of equal exchange, I will receive equal remuneration. I'll leave this matter to you, Cheng. But, listening to the screams coming from the other side of the phone, Fusion suddenly broke out in cold sweat. Is there really no problem with you? How can I hear this, with that kind of cry? It seems like... Well, it's just your illusion. After all, not everyone can enjoy the journey to hell. Makoto Takahashi smiled with satisfaction and hung up Fukuda's call. Although Takahashi Makoto had already thought about what would happen after eating Rina's dark cuisine, looking at the situation at the scene, it was even more perfect than Takahashi Makoto imagined. The assistants fell on the ground or on the table in various weird postures, and Yachin Mumenjai and the two were indeed a good duo. When the yellow-haired glasses man entered hell, he did not forget to hold Landai with one hand. And the other hand is holding the hand of his girlfriend Jianji. Is this really the rhythm of forming a group to clear the hell dungeon? As for Rina, although she is the culprit, as the imprisoned princess, Takahashi Makoto has already sent her to the bedroom based on the principle of treating prisoners well. Cheng, you. Yashida covered his mouth and pointed at Makoto Takahashi with a trembling finger, as if he recognized the murderer before the victim died and prepared to leave a death message. This dinner is indeed my familiar cat. It seems you finally discovered it. Makoto Takahashi slowly walked to Yashida-chi. You are really slow to react. When you saw the imprisoned princess, you didn't even think of the existence of dark cuisine. But Yashida held on to prevent himself from falling into coma, and asked with some reluctance, before I saw you coming from the kitchen, I thought, humph. This is the devil's secret skill, deadly disguise. Makoto Takahashi knelt down and smiled. Have you ever considered treating me like a little sea otter? Stop shaking your head. This look is all too familiar to me. This kind of pleasure is not something that mere mortals can enjoy. My beloved cat, have you felt the call of hell now? Sorry, recently an elderly person in my family is hospitalized, and I spend time accompanying him in the hospital every day. I am really sorry for the late update and the single update. This is not included in the charge. A middle school cartoonist. Author, Mao Do Sde Mao. Chapter 94. The ranking of this issue of Crow has increased. Makoto Takahashi looked at Yashida in front of him. After learning the news, there was no too surprised expression on his face. Instead, he said in a matter-of-fact tone, "It seems that the manga animation after the news of the transformation came out, the comics will indeed enter a violent state. Hey, it's really difficult to deal with. This is just the king of Black Flame. I really don't know if he will be able to face God in the future." Hiramaru-kun Sea Otter has also been planned to be animated. It seems that the animation will be carried out soon. When Yoshida mentioned the little sea otter, a happy smile appeared on his face. In order to prevent him from being serialized, to have the idea of giving up, you need to take some extraordinary measures. Oh? In that case. Makoto Takahashi smiled the same as Yoshida when he heard what Yoshida said, "Let the little sea otter buy a luxury sports car." The method is very simple. Just let him know that owning a luxury sports car can increase your charm and make it easier to win the favor of the opposite sex. Of course, the price of the car, I don't need to mention this. He, I know this. Yoshida nodded in agreement and continued, "And since I bought a good car, I also need a villa with an underground garage. As a popular cartoonist, if you don't have a car and a villa, it doesn't make sense, right? And if you have an independent villa, you can invite girls to your home. I don't think Hiramaru-kun would object to this, right? Well, it's true. And the smile on Takahashi Makoto's face became even weirder. If the little sea otter doesn't have enough money, I can provide assistance. Well, in terms of interest, it only costs 1 cent of soft girl coin on the first day. 2 cents of soft sister coins will be required the next day, and it will be enough to increase by 1 cent every day. Add 1 penny a day. This is really..." The corner of Yoshida's mouth twitched, and he looked at Makoto Takahashi with a look of horror. "If you do this, Mr. Hiramaru will be burdened with a huge debt. Chen, it's so cruel." "But it's also for the little sea otter." Makoto Takahashi looked at Yoshida confidently. "After carrying a huge debt, the little sea otter shouldn't have the idea of going on strike midway, right? If he wants to pay off the debt, he can only work hard to draw comics. Make money, just keep drawing like this, become His Majesty the Demon King's slave, and work until you die. Hiramaru-kun shouldn't be so stupid to notice such a simple thing, right?" Yoshida secretly assessed the little sea otter's IQ, shook his head helplessly, and took the manga manuscript from Makoto Takahashi. "Then I have accepted the comic manuscript of this issue. By the way, your recent steel refining has been very popular among readers. Many people have called the editorial office and asked for steel refining to publish a supplement. This kind of treatment is not something that ordinary cartoonists can enjoy. Do you think I will be happy when you hear the news?" Makoto Takahashi glanced back at the kitchen secretly, looking at Yoshida with a pale face. "Would you like to stay for lunch? Princess Rina's cooking is my own. Familiar cats, enjoy the nightmare again. I have to supervise the little sea otter in the afternoon." Yoshida's face became a little ugly, and he immediately gave up the excuse that he was ready to run away, and quickly put the comic manuscript into his bag. "Then that's it, I'm leaving first." Bang. "Did you fail? It seems that the lethality last time was too powerful. My companion cat has already produced in the heart." Looking at Yoshida running away, Takahashi Makoto complained helplessly, got up, and left. Arriving in the kitchen, Rina interrupted her act of using the Dark Noble Phantasm. After the new issue of Shounen Jump is released, as a serialized cartoonist, you have the right to receive a sample issue. Looking at this sample issue, Takahashi Makoto frowned a little, because in this issue of Shounen Jump, there was another reasoning comic called The Reasoner Akaki Gasuke. Compared with Suspicious Detective, because the original author himself is a mystery novelist, the level of this mystery comic is very high, which also pushed the duo of Aiken Mumenjai to the cliff of despair. Is the anime premiere of Crow in 1 week? Makoto Takahashi looked at the calendar on the wall and frowned. Is this the King of Black Flame's counterattack? It seems that we need to think of a way. Steel refining has not yet reached the point of breaking out, and hanging is now gathering strength. If we want to kill the Black Flame King in one fell swoop, it seems we will need some special reinforcements. Sorry to disturb you, Master. Mr. Jengzin and Mr. Takagi next door are looking for you. Sebastian walked in with Akin Mumanjai and two others. Then, please sit down, and go down and prepare black tea. Huh? That's it? Makoto Takahashi was still a little confused at first, but after seeing the faces of the two people opposite him, he understood a little bit. He turned to Sebastian and ordered, Sabas-chan, Your Highness Princess over there, I'll leave it to you. Yes, I understand. Sebastian smiled, bowed, and put the black tea on the table. Then please forgive me for being rude. Cheng, I think you already know the purpose of our visit, right? After watching Sabas and Rina go out, it was the man with yellow hair and glasses who spoke. Lan Dai just looked at Takahashi Cheng quietly, although there was also a look of expectation in his eyes. Our comic, detective is now. First of all, I want to remind you that I am His Majesty the Demon King who is full of madness. Makoto Takahashi took a sip of black tea and interrupted the yellow-haired glasses man. If you want to get useful information from the Demon King, do you know what you should do? This is an equal exchange. Why do you keep staring at me? Lan Dai finally spoke, because after Makoto Takahashi finished speaking, he kept looking at Lan Dai. Looking at the weird smile on Takahashi Cheng's face, Lan Dai moved a little uneasily and swallowed unconsciously. What do you want? Yeah. A photo. Makoto Takahashi put down the teacup in his hand and raised the corner of his mouth slightly, a photo of Lan Dai and a female voice actor named Yada kissing. Puff. The man with yellow-haired glasses spurted out the tea in his mouth, suppressed the smile on his face, and turned to look at the blushing Lan Dai next to him. This kind of request is a bit embarrassing for a good partner, right? But, the yellow-haired glasses man gave Takahashi Makoto a thumbs up. How is this possible? Lan Dai finally couldn't bear it any longer. His face turned red, whether from shyness or anger, and he roared loudly, since you don't want to say it, Cheng, then forget it. Alas. You don't want to pay but you want to get information at the same time. You are so willful, Makoto Takahashi complained and continued, but because we have been together to attack the editorial department, we can advance some money this time. No, I'm so happy so early, Mr. Huangmao Glasses, please remember to add the photo later. Hee, if you forget it afterwards, the result will be, you know. Hey, we got it. After hearing Takahashi Makoto's words, Yachin Mumenjai and two people immediately sat up straight, and the smiles on their faces also faded, ready to listen to Takahashi Makoto's advice. The man with yellow-haired glasses looked at Makoto Takahashi expectantly. Regarding the suspicious detective he came up with, the narrative method of the story is somewhat similar to that of Han-chan created by the other party, but the results of the two are somewhat. This makes Mr. Huangmao Glasses very puzzled. Unlike Higurashi, the stories of suspicious detective cannot be coherent together, seemingly guessing what the yellow-haired glasses man was thinking. Makoto Takahashi pointed out his doubts directly, because the current Higurashi, it's just setting up foreshadowing, and the story itself is not complete. But the detective is different. After an event is completed, it means the end of a story. This kind of single plot story is a test for the story creator. Ability. If you can't write interesting stories, then the evaluation of comics will gradually decline and it will be difficult to rise again. I already know this. The yellow-haired glasses man scratched his head and looked at Makoto Takahashi with some trouble, so I was thinking if I should read letters from readers. I want to tell the stories they want to see, join the comics. In this way, maybe comics can attract people. If you do this, you will definitely be cut in half. Makoto Takahashi suddenly sneered and said in a tone of experience, you are the creators of comics, and the development of the story is up to you. If you give up yourself, the idea of only catering to readers' preferences will become extremely boring. It has won the support of a small number of readers, but it has made the comics lose their spirituality. This approach will lose the faith of believers and also lose the whole world. Believers believe, and there is a world. Black lines appeared on the heads of the two of them. It was obviously just a comic book, but why did it suddenly switch to the existence of the world? Even though they are now familiar with the way Makoto Takahashi talks, they still can't understand some words. Huh? Sure enough, isn't there a world? Makoto Takahashi looked at the confused expressions of the two people, ignored them, and continued, "You created comics, and you also created a world. In this new world, in the world, your existence is equal to that of God. You control everything, know the past, have insight into the future, and are omnipotent. However, what you are doing now is to give up the self-respect and pride that God should have, and abandon the illusion of godhood. To become immortal, this result will lead to the collapse of the world. Natural and man-made disasters will fragment the world, and eventually lead to destruction. Anyway, this just won't work, right?" Although the yellow-haired glasses man didn't quite understand what he heard, he still understood the general meaning. "Alas. Are you, just mortals after all?" Makoto Takahashi sighed helplessly. "Forget it, it's advance information anyway. Remember to pay. Of course, if you can please His Highness the Demon King, I will give you more. I have told you before that if you want to succeed, you must keep playing shy communication games with failure. You must know that there is only necessity in this world, there is no accident. Then let's say goodbye." The two simply ignored Takahashi Makoto's words, stood up and said goodbye to leave. When the two walked to the door, Takahashi Makoto's voice came again. "The fear of failure will make people lose the direction of progress. I hope that at that time, you will not forget your pride as a god," Makoto Takahashi kindly reminded. "As His Majesty the Demon King, I have seen it's the end." A middle school cartoonist. Author, MaleProtagonist Male. Chapter 95. The second chapter of the Kongsha chapter still tells a very ordinary campus story, but careful readers will see that when Sadako Hojo appears occasionally, there are black spots similar to bruises on the places where her arms and neck meet. As they continued to read the manga, many readers became extremely angry because Satoko Hojo, a cute little loli, was abused by her guardian. Looking at the manga, Hojo Satoko, a young loli, is being called around by her evil uncle. Many readers, like Kiyaki, hate her uncle so much. Seidoza's uncle and his friends were playing mahjong, and asked Seidoza to buy food and drinks. Seeing such a little Lolita carrying a bunch of things and staggering around, many readers felt a little sad. When they saw that Kiyaki was angry and wanted to break into Satoko's home, many readers felt the same way. They wished they could rush into Satoko's home with Kiyaki and educate that bad uncle. But on the next page of the manga, Satoko stopped Kiyaki. Kiyaki was even more angry when he saw the bruises on Satoko's body, but he was stopped by Dri Kyasuke on the side. Through Dri's explanation, many people reacted by stopping Kiyaki's angry behavior. If Kiyaki breaks into Satoko's house at this time and has a conflict with his uncle, then what awaits Satoko will be even worse abuse. Just now, Kiyaki looked like my brother. Satoko looked up at Kiyaki and called out his nickname for his brother. Seeing this scene, many people were a little depressed, and what Satoko said next, and even resorted to a foul double combo. Although my original brother is gone, now I have a brother named Kiyaki accompanying me. I will never escape. As soon as Kiyaki finished speaking, Satoko's eyes began to shed tears. In the previous comics, Dri once told Kiyaki that after Satoko's parents died in an accident, the Satoko siblings were fostered in their uncle's home. However, their uncle kept abusing the siblings until during the Myanliu festival, their aunt was beaten to death. After that, Hojo Satoru disappeared, leaving Satoko alone to face his evil uncle. When I read it before, many readers just sighed and did not resonate with it. But when he saw this, he began to feel angry towards Satoko's brother, Hojo Satoru. Like Kiyaki, many readers are wondering, why didn't Hojo Satoru leave with Satoko? And why doesn't the law protect such abuse of Lolita? Although the Child Welfare Act provides for the protection of Satoko by forcibly removing her from her guardian, Satoko is unwilling and does not want to do this. Like Kiyaki, Dri's explanation left many readers a little confused. I wonder, why is Shatuzi unwilling to leave such a cruel life? She seems to regard her uncle's bullying as a test for her. She hopes to pass this test without relying on anyone's help, only relying on her own strength. Dri's words made Kiyaki and many readers somewhat enlightened. Shatuzi thinks that if he does not have such strength, then Wushi will never come back. In other words, Satoshi himself does not admit that his behavior towards his uncle is abuse. Become strong and wait for Satoru to come back. This is the reason why Satoko persists and survives. If Satoko is really in danger, I will definitely report it. After hearing this, Kiyaki's face became very determined. Even if Satoko hates me for the rest of his life, I will do the same. This issue of Hansekata ends here. Yang Wei put down the comic in his hand, feeling very irritable. Especially at the end, Ki Iana made a firm statement, as if he was hinting at something. Yang Wei can be sure that if Ki does this, Shatuza will definitely hate him for the rest of his life. Koyaki obviously wants to protect Satoko, but he may injure Satoko again. Yang Wei flipped through this issue of Hansekata again, with a helpless expression on his face. He took out his phone and read it several times, murmuring. He murmured to himself, this kind of story is really, but I really want to know the development later. Although I have a guess now, but it will turn into a story of love and killing, this shouldn't happen. After hesitating several times, Yang Wei still called Takahashi Makoto's cell phone, hoping to confirm his suspicions or hope that Takahashi Makoto would give spoilers. In short, Yang Wei, with various complicated thoughts, was anxiously waiting for the call. The connection. After a long wait, just when Yang Wei was about to hang up the phone, Takahashi Makoto finally answered the call. Hey! Brave monster! Report your name quickly. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude to you. As soon as Takahashi Cheng spoke, Yang Wei choked to death. What kind of unfolding is this? Let's not talk about monsters for the time being. Yang Wei, who had seen Takahashi Makoto's true appearance before, was a little speechless. The appearance shown on TV by the Phoenix Academy murderer didn't seem to be as big as his own, right? What's the point of the name Loken? Yang Wei looked at his phone to confirm that he had not dialed the wrong number, and then asked tentatively, is this the president of the Phoenix Academy? I am Yang Wei, the Wei Yang who has contacted you before. Ahaha, it turns out to be my representative in this world, Bishop Mu Yang. Does this way of speaking finally remind you of yourself? Yang Wei talked on the phone with a headache, but in his heart he confirmed the rumors on the internet that the murderer of the Phoenix Hospital was actually a patient with severe secondary disease. What are you calling me for? Takahashi Makoto deliberately lowered his voice and said to Yang Wei impatiently, are the members of the church rebelling? It's a pity that I am currently at war with fantasy movement and cannot be distracted. Over there. And since you are the leader, you should be able to handle such a small matter, right? Fantasy movement? What is that? Listening to Takahashi Makoto's incomprehensible words, Yang Wei became more and more confused. After a slight pause, Yang Wei finally remembered his intention to call before, so he asked, well, Master of the Phoenix Academy, about the story of Shatuze, a little Lolita in the Kongsha chapter of Hansekata. You are worthy of being the last guardian of the ruins. The fantasy music is so strong, Makoto Takahashi suddenly shouted, and then gasped, but, how about this move? Cuteness is justice, let's do it, Ling, Tita. Long live lowly Mencha. The clouds of sadness are coming back to the west, and the sad warrior is dying first. I will sacrifice my soul to you. Ah! The secret skill of the cherry blossom moon. Then, the phone was hung up by Makoto Takahashi. Yang Wei looked at the message that the call ended on the screen, and suddenly had the urge to smash the phone. Speaking of which, the patient with severe Chuyunibu is the cartoonist I admired very much before. Is the Phoenix Institute really evil? Yang Wei, who previously thought that Takahashi Makoto's various performances were just performances during the interview show, at this moment, the image in his heart suddenly shattered. This is the collapse of faith and the fall of God. Spoilers are unethical behavior. Just when Yang Wei was desperate, his cell phone suddenly prompted that he had received a text message, which was sent by Makoto Takahashi. Then the phone started vibrating non-stop, and text messages began to flash one by one. It was a rhythm that couldn't be stopped at all. As His Majesty the Demon King of Healing Love, a man full of madness, I have seen through your actions. Do you want to peek into the future? For those who peek into the future without permission, do you have the consciousness to sacrifice the rest of your life? My agent, this is not a request, it is just, yes, there is nothing wrong, it is just an exchange of equal value. The truth is cruel. If you pursue the truth, you will lose yourself and lose your soul, so answer me, do you have this awareness? If you have respect in your heart, if you are hesitant, give up. This persistence will bring endless resentment and endless troubles in hell. My agent, can you bear the despair and darkness of this world? I just want to know the follow-up of the comic. Is it so exaggerated? The phone is still vibrating, and text messages are coming one after another. Yang Wei is about to collapse. Just when he wanted to turn off his phone, the text message combo finally stopped. Yang Wei started reading the last message with suspicion. The next development of Hansekata is that Shatuza will, Rather than knowing the follow-up of the comic from the author, it is better to speculate on the development of the comic, be curious with anticipation, and wait slowly. For the unknown existence, human beings are always curious, and this is true for comics, and so is life. If you know the ending of a comic in advance, you may lose interest in the comic. If you know what will happen in the future, your life will come to a standstill. This is the so-called human being's desire. Well, thank you for your support, my successor, Master Mu Yang. Although I agree with this point of view. Yang Wei looked at the phone and wailed unwillingly, but when you say this, Master of the Phoenix Academy, I want to know the follow-up development of Hansekata even more. It's deliberately titillating. Is this kind of bad taste worthy of His Majesty the Demon King? It seems that this time, another lost lamb has been saved. Makoto Takahashi put down his mobile phone, knelt on the ground on one knee, intertwined his hands on his chest, and showed a holy smile on his face. Lord under the guidance of the fierce Demon King of the Phoenix Academy, your followers have returned to their original trajectory. Now that this is over, please abandon your divine status and fall to the mortal world. Makoto Takahashi stood up and gently took off the blindfold on his face. The smile on his face became a little ferocious, and his Chuyuni halo was fully opened. I hereby declare that I will kill gods to prove my way. What are you doing, Makoto? Looking at Makoto Takahashi's abnormal behavior, Rina tilted her head and asked Sabas with some confusion. Based on the young master's daily behavior, he should have made up a powerful enemy and is now preparing a declaration of expedition or something like that. Sebastian looked at Makoto Takahashi with a smile and explained to Rina beside him, creating a delusional existence like a powerful enemy. All middle school patients seem to have this stage, and the young master seems to be in this stage now. Huh? Is that so? Rina looked at Sebastian in disbelief, with a helpless expression on her face. Sabas-chan, do you have no problem with what you said, Chang-kun? No problem at all. Because the young master is His Majesty the Demon King, he doesn't care about these little things at all. Sebastian smiled and bowed slightly, ignoring the twitching of the corner of Rena's mouth, and said elegantly, "Please bear with me, Your Royal Highness the Princess. As I said before, an elderly person at home has been hospitalized recently, and he has to go to the hospital to take care of him for a period of time after get off work every day, so the update is relatively late during this period. Of course, if there is no update or anything, please leave. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A middle school cartoonist. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 96. Well, is that so? It's really a pity. I didn't expect that there would be a double kill between trap and hideout door. Tisk, 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 is the editorial department going into a killing spree? When Takahashi Makoto heard the news brought by Yoshida, he stopped painting unexpectedly, looked at the manga manuscript on the table, and said incomprehensible words, "I didn't expect that in the parallel world, even if there is an extra demon king like me, the disrupted world will still deliberately return to its original trajectory. Although I also feel a little regretful, maybe this is also a good thing for them." Yoshida took a sip of black tea and expressed his opinions in an orderly manner. Let's take the Aiken Mu Menjai next door as an example. These two people are very motivated. They are very serious when drawing comics, and they keep honing their skills in painting and story construction. Although the series has been cut in half this time. But I think their next comic will be exciting. Huh? My beloved cat, although I agree with your point of view, but... Makoto Takahashi shook his head helplessly and said to himself, if the trajectories of the world really overlap, then the next comic for the two of them will probably be, well, that's fine, let me verify, is this destiny? It's coming again, what are you talking about, Chen? Yoshida looked at Makoto Takahashi in confusion, with a suspicious look on his face. Why does your tone sound like you can predict Aiken Mu Menjai and the others will be the same in their next manga? Is this possible? Moreover, Aiken Mu Menjai and his two people are not obsessed with comics. You, a Chuyunibu, can't interfere at will. In the past, Zhuangzhou's dream was that of a butterfly. I wonder if Zhou's dream was that of a butterfly, and Hu Dai's dream was that of Zhou Yu. Makoto Takahashi suddenly jumped down from his chair and picked up the wooden sword from the corner. When humans encounter setbacks, it's easy to feel self-defeating, but this is the time for heroes to appear. What do you want to do, Chen? Yoshida was a little confused after listening to Takahashi Makoto's words. Is this guy Chen going to comfort Aiken Mu Menjai and the others? Has this secondary disease turned sexual? Rescuing the lost boys and girls, this is the real Dynasty Warriors. Makoto Takahashi snapped his fingers. I want them to cheer up again and continue to devote their limited lives to the unlimited career of comics. Are you so kind? Yoshida didn't believe Takahashi Makoto's words at all, and a doubtful light flashed in his eyes, and I don't think they will give up comics because of such a little setback. So you don't need to encourage them, just feel free to draw your comics. Tisk tisk tisk, my beloved cat, did you really only see the next move and not the further place? Makoto Takahashi showed an enigmatic smile on his face. Encouragement? How is such a thing possible? Ah! Do you really think that I will become a hero of justice at this moment? Sorry, as a demon king, even if I become a hero, I will only be a hero of darkness. Then you want to go? Yoshida pointed to the wooden sword on Takahashi Makoto's waist. If you are wandering around on the street with that kind of dangerous item, be careful of being invited to drink old man's tea. Sabas-chan, Princess Rina, let's go. Makoto Takahashi did not answer Yoshida's words, but greeted the two people who were watching before, giving despair, death, and fear to mankind. This is what the dark hero bears. Fate. Mission, Demon King's Patrol. Mission record, please communicate with the gay duo Uncle Nakai and Kang Shuhong to trigger hidden events. Mission reward, the scale of the King's Feast will be expanded in the future, and new achievements will be added in the name of the Demon King's glory. Special note, this task is a hidden task. Please complete it within a certain time. Based on distance and time calculations, it is recommended to talk to a good duo first. Hey, I heard that your comics were cut in half. How does failure feel like? Takahashi Chang smiled strangely and entered the house of his good friend next door. Rina, who came in behind, immediately covered her face when she heard what Takahashi Makoto said and wanted to say something, but was stopped by Sebastian with a smile. This kind of gloating provocation, is this guy Aiken here to fight? Landai and the yellow-haired glasses man looked at each other. After a brief exchange in their eyes, their expressions became a little unhappy. If it weren't for the huge gap in force, Makoto Takahashi would definitely be beaten by the duo of good friends. You are really annoying. Now you are saying. Seeing that Yoshi is impatient, after listening to Takahashi Makoto's words, he immediately wanted to step forward and give Takahashi Makoto a good beating, but he was stopped by his boyfriend Huang Mao. Mr. Glasses is holding on. Does Landai still remember the romance of a man? Makoto Takahashi looked at Landai with a strange smile on his face. When you become a real hero, you will appear in front of the woman you love. This is the romance of a man. Ah! But have you ever thought about how many times you have failed to become a hero? A man's romance, Uncle's comics. Landai also smiled. After briefly recalling the killing, a burning fire flashed in his eyes, and his fighting spirit awakened. Kairen and I will definitely win this time. Although we surpassed him in terms of points, you guys, it's not possible at the moment, but in the next comic, we will definitely win, we will definitely win. Oh, it's good to be so passionate. Makoto Takahashi suddenly poured cold water on him, with an inexplicable smile on his face, and kindly reminded him, but don't be too passionate. You can't act rationally. Even if you are a hero, you will lose when you fight. If we fail, we will try again. If we fall, we will stand up again. In order to become a cartoonist, in order to realize the agreement with Yadu. Until these two goals are achieved, no matter how many times we fail, Akito and I will continue keep painting hard and keep fighting. Landai seemed to be ignited by Takahashi Makoto, and his voice became louder and louder, while the man with yellow hair and glasses on the side seemed to be infected, holding on to his girlfriend tightly. Seeing Ji's hand, he looked at Makoto Takahashi seriously, his eyes full of fighting spirit. Fighting for the woman you love, is this the romance of a man? The yellow-haired glasses man was affected by the atmosphere and fell into a mysterious passion. If the next comic series is successful, I will work with Mayashi get married. I want to be such a hero too. So Chang, your comic. The duo of good friends looked at Makoto Takahashi, showing an incredible tacit understanding, and said in unison, before that, don't get cut in half. Tisk, 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 when using each other's auxiliary skills, don't you forget to apply a weakening curse on the enemy. Makoto Takahashi looked at the passionate duo and said something unrelated with a calm face. Do you know why the hero is written as hero? The so-called heroes are a mixture of H and arrow. So the reason why heroes are powerful is because they use H as their motivation. I didn't understand this before, but now that I see you working so hard for the girl, I suddenly got it. Oh, is that so? Myanji, who was moved to tears just now turned to doubtful eyes, staring at the yellow-haired glasses man. The marriage I just mentioned, actually, I want to. 1/3 of the mission is completed, the next place to go is. Makoto Takahashi completely ignored what was happening in someone else's studio, but took out his notebook and wrote down the mission record. Sabas-chan, I'm going next. Princess Rina, What's going on with that look in your face? Makoto-kun, do you still remember our agreement? Rina's eyes flashed strangely, and she used a flash attack directly on Takahashi Makoto. Well, of course I remember, Makoto Takahashi said calmly. I remember I told you at the beginning that after I kill the slime scum and challenge the gods and Buddhas in the sky, I will become the real Demon King. From now on, you will be on top of the world, overlooking the humble and twisted struggle of the ants. Makoto-kun is a big idiot. Rina listened with a shy face at first, but after hearing more, she found that Takahashi-chen was talking more and more, and she suddenly became a little angry. After cursing, she ran away decisively. Master, at this time, you shouldn't say. Sebastian kindly reminded Takahashi Makoto, but in the middle of his words, he was interrupted by Takahashi Makoto. Why, do you also want me to become a hero and fight for Her Royal Highness the Princess? Makoto Takahashi shook his head and said with pride, don't get me wrong, I am the Demon King who is full of madness. Since I am as the Demon King, of course I must capture the princess and imprison her in the castle for the rest of her life. I understand, so now. Sebastian looked at the eavesdropping figure outside the door, a smile appeared on his face, and he decisively changed the subject. Will you continue to complete the previous task? The mission has been completed. Makoto Takahashi looked up at the notebook in his hand, pointed at the two good friends behind him, and began to use his long-lost taunting skills. Look at the three people over there who have fallen into a state of frenzy. Although the mission there were some surprises during the process, but the goal I expected has been achieved. Chen, are you leaving? Landai watched Takahashi Chen and others preparing to leave, and smiled a little sheepishly. Although your way of speaking is still so middle-aged, thank you this time. Humph. Thank me? Hee, are you thinking too much? Takahashi Chen walked out the door without looking back. Let you stand up again with great struggle and challenge His Majesty the Demon King, and then again pushing you into the abyss of despair. This kind of pleasure based on your pain really makes me look forward to it. So in order to please His Majesty the Demon King, you must twist and struggle, you ignorant mortals. Landai and the yellow-haired glasses man looked at each other. Is Takahashi Makoto's behavior considered tsundere? Sure enough, if she wasn't a girl, she wouldn't look cute at all. Rina, become my heroine. Makoto Takahashi walked outside the door, grabbed a handful of Rina who was trying to escape, and ignored the opponent's struggle, read the existence of heroine as a heroine. What do you mean? Rina stopped struggling and looked at Makoto Takahashi in confusion. Either you don't get it, Makoto Takahashi said as he kissed her, or you get it and you can't quit it for the rest of your life. A middle school cartoonist. Author, MaleProtagonist Mao. Chapter 97. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. Cheng, what do you think about our next work of drawing funny comics? The man with yellow hair and glasses over the phone gasped. Is it because of the cold weather? Or is it because I just had a philosophical exchange with a good gay friend? Is the so-called future really a repeat of history? Makoto Takahashi gave this answer after being silent for a moment. As if he could sense the confusion of the yellow-haired glasses man, Takahashi Makoto continued to explain, the subject matter of the comics is not important, what is important is you. If you don't integrate your own soul into it, even the best-rated comics will be useless. A meaningless existence. Instead of asking me whether the comics are wonderful, you should ask your own heart whether the comics you create resonate with your soul. So what matters is the heart, the important thing is the soul. Integrating into the heart and soul, the yellow-haired glasses man was even more confused. Humph. That's of course. Do you know the reason why your comics were cut in half? Makoto Takahashi said in a tone of let me teach you how to be a human being, spreading the hatred value unscrupulously, it's because you don't love enough. Ah. The comics have been cut in half, and I can't think of new themes. The root of everything that makes you confused and helpless is love. So, I want to. The yellow-haired glasses man looked at the expectant Landai next to him, shook his head silently, and hung up the phone. Let's ask my new wife's classmate. I can't understand what Aiken said at all. So I told you before. Looking at his good friend who started calling again, Landai lowered his voice a lot. Don't ask that idiot from the second grade. That guy is even a popular cartoonist. And I can't communicate normally at all. Hey, you dare to interrupt the missionary activities of His Majesty the Cure Love Demon King, that yellow hair. Makoto Takahashi looked at the phone unhappily, took a deep breath, and was about to activate his unique skill SMS bombing when the call came again. It rang. I don't know what your orders are, Your Highness. You called me late at night. Through many tragic accidents, Takahashi Makoto has learned the lesson of be sure to check the caller ID before answering the phone, and this time he luckily escaped. Listening to the other side of the phone, Rina didn't speak for a long time, and Takahashi Makoto became a little confused. Her Royal Highness the Princess just left yesterday, and now she's calling. Could it be that the leader of Ogata Slimes has appeared again, ready to cause harm to the people? Princess Rina, please find a safe place to hide. I will lead the demon army to kill you. Cheng-kun, can you come and see the Calamus with me tomorrow? Rina's voice was a little disappointed. That child, she seems to be a little. I refuse. Makoto Takahashi did not tell Rina about the previous incident between Icarus and himself, but it does not mean that Makoto Takahashi will forget it. The attribute of holding grudges is a natural skill for the Demon King. Therefore, Makoto Takahashi decisively rejected Rina's request. Humph. For the man who once transformed into a mascot, but whose real identity is the slime leader, he arranged for the undercover soldiers around the Demon King to be undercover. For the sake of the princess, he did not carry out humane destruction. This is already considered merciful. Now she actually wants to get help from the Demon King. Is she really desperate? Humph, this can be regarded as a punishment for her. Cheng-kun, Icarus has already told me about the matter between you and Iris before. That matter was the fault of Iris. She has sincerely apologized and asked me to convey my apology to you. Rina was a little confused. After hesitating, especially after hearing Takahashi Makoto's cold snort, Rina sighed helplessly. Anyway, please, Makoto-kun, Iris is like a younger sister to me. She has recently. If the apology was useful, the earth would not have been destroyed countless times. Makoto Takahashi complained unhappily. Since she has chosen to commit suicide, she must commit suicide to the end. This kind of behavior of surrendering and giving up midway is considered what? Tisk, 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 you are really a coward, incompetent, and timid young man. It was really a wrong decision to invite her to the future king's feast. Makoto-kun, Iris, she plans to give up and continue drawing comics. Rina suddenly said this, making Takahashi Makoto stunned. Humph. Did you run away because of fear? Slime subordinates are really just a bunch of bastards. Makoto Takahashi interrupted Rina's attempt to continue explaining, with some anger in his tone. In this case, I'd rather there is no reason to persuade her. She has deviated from her ideals and abandoned her faith. This kind of person can no longer be saved. Since she wants to fall, let her become the bait of the karma fire and burn up in the abyss of hell. Bar. I know, although she was a little unhappy, Rina did not continue to say anything and was about to hang up the phone. However, since Princess Rina has already spoken, I'd better give it a try. Makoto Takahashi showed a smirk on his face. Speaking of which, beating up a girl who tells lies is the most loving thing. Although in the past it's a bit unpleasant, but for a lying girl who has certain delusions, let His Majesty the Demon King teach that lying girl how to behave. Ha 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 ha. Although Rina wanted to say thank you, she listened to Takahashi Makoto's laughter and chose to hang up the phone. The next day, Makoto Takahashi, who was carrying a wooden sword, and Sebastian, whose smile never disappeared, arrived at the place agreed with Rina. Tisk tisk tisk, Sabas-chan, are we really here to educate the liar girl today? Makoto Takahashi looked at the huge and luxurious villa in front of him, his face a little unhappy. How about we form a team now and conquer the residents? Will the Witch of Lies in this castle occupy this bridgehead and make it the front-line base for the Demon King to destroy the world? Master, Princess Rina is already here. Sebastian did not agree with Takahashi Makoto's words, but looked at Rina, who had just gotten out of the car, and whispered softly, Miss Changsoon's family background is similar to that of Master. Miss Changsoon, my grandfather has a very close relationship with me in business. Before. Stop, 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 Makoto Takahashi stopped Sebastian impatiently, and before Rina came over, he said to Sebastian, Hey, don't tell me, when we were not born, we're already married. What's going on with this third-rate urban drama? My soul has already been dedicated to your highness. Don't let me divert it into some rich family fight story. Master, you are worrying too much. Sebastian bowed, with an unpredictable smile on his face. Sorry, Chang-kun, I'm late. Rina smiled sheepishly, the wind making her hair a little messy. Yoshi, the priest is already in place, let's check the equipment again. Oh, forget it, there's no need to be so cautious in defeating the slime leader, it's just a foodie mascot undercover. Makoto Takahashi held Rina's hand. Pulling out the wooden sword, all troops, the assault begins. At Iris's house, Iris was sitting on the sofa with an unhappy face. Makoto Takahashi was guarding Rina tightly behind him. Sebastian was diligently preparing tea, with a smile on his face, and kept looking at the three of them. He was wandering around, with an expression on his face that he was ready to watch a show, but no one saw him. Humph, Makoto Takahashi, you are indeed here. Iris suddenly laughed and stared at Makoto Takahashi. As long as you tell Sister Rina that I want to give up comics, I know that you will come with me, sister. Humph. No one can hide the truth in front of the Demon King. Makoto Takahashi's face was calm. Rina wanted to say something anxiously, but Makoto Takahashi shook his head to stop her. Be honest about your intentions, daughter of lies. Don't think that I will forgive you this time. Offending the Demon King is not an unforgivable crime, but, taking advantage of the princess's kindness and caring heart should be punished. Sure enough, Takahashi Makoto, you will become angry once you have anything to do with Sister Rina. Iris was still smiling unbridled, his eyes full of provocation, although your concern for Sister Rina is very disappointing to Iris. Touched, but a scum like you actually wants to monopolize Sister Rina, this is the most unforgivable thing. This kind of resentment filled with being possessed by countless Tauren. Makoto Takahashi looked at Iris calmly, with an enigmatic smile on his face. It seems that what I guessed before was not wrong, you are indeed. Takahashi Makoto. Iris glanced at Rina with a blushing face, and suddenly screamed, not only interrupting Takahashi Makoto's words, but also successfully changing the subject. Let's have a showdown. Huh? You're a scumbag with a fighting power of only 5. Makoto Takahashi looked at Iris with disdain, pulled out his wooden sword and pointed it at him. Humph, are you another rude person who peeks at my princess? Since I sincerely plead, then, I will kindly give you 3 seconds to leave your last words and come forward to die. Makoto-kun. Rina seemed to understand a little bit. She was suddenly uneasy about Iris's gaze and shrank behind Makoto Takahashi. However, she was worried that Makoto Takahashi would hurt Iris, so she gently pulled Takahashi Makoto. Floor sleeves. Takahashi Makoto, you violent maniac. Iris looked at the expectant smile on Takahashi Makoto's face and took a few steps back unconsciously. However, looking at Rina's little movements, he suddenly became unhappy. Why can you monopolize Sister Rina? Why can a lunatic like you get the love of Sister Rina? Hey, do you want to turn on the darkening to improve your combat effectiveness? Looking at Icarus, who was in a special state and kept talking incomprehensible words, Takahashi Makoto had a helpless smile on his face. Although Lily is infinite okay, but being attacked by a female Tauren, it's really sad to think about it. That's enough of the boring conversation, right? Let's end it now. Stunt Sword of the Underworld. The duel I'm talking about refers to comics. Iris saw that Takahashi Makoto was about to take action, and he was immediately frightened, and hurriedly opened his mouth to activate the spirit talking technique to defend. Manga duel. Makoto Takahashi stopped and lowered his head in thought for a moment, then shook his head. Although I am very interested in this proposal, but coming from a girl who likes to lie, there is no possibility of trust at all. Don't look at me with that look, it's actually like that. Also, I've noticed your delusions about Princess Rina a long time ago. This time, Calamus was silent. After a long time, he slowly spoke and asked the doubts in his heart, when did you know about it? The last time you put a curse on me, I had already seen through everything. Whenever you mention Princess Rina, your attitude and eyes change slightly. Makoto Takahashi pointed to the eye patch. The left eye of the ground said, the eye that can see through all illusions is my newly awakened ability. Now that I know that you covet Her Highness the Princess, do you think I will let you go easily? The comics I serialize in Shonen Jump have the support of many female readers. Ayam suddenly changed the topic, with a confident smile on her face. Even you can't surpass me in this regard. If you want me to give up this delusion, you can only defeat me in this regard and make me admit defeat with conviction. As long as you can't defeat me, sooner or later, I will take Sister Rina away from you. What's the matter? Takahashi Makoto put down the wooden sword in his hand, put his arm around Rina's waist, and smiled. If you have a sword in your hand, you can't hug the princess. If you don't have a sword in your hand, you can't protect the princess. But the Demon King is the embodiment of greed. If you want to protect the princess, you must hug her tightly. Before I kill you, dissipate those extra emotions as soon as possible. The Demon King with a sword in his hand is the strongest existence. So, I'll take this duel. Sorry, the update is late. I won't explain the reason. The update is late. It's the fault of a certain cat. It's useless to say more. A middle school cartoonist. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 98. The duel initiated by Iris is actually very demanding for the cartoonist who serialized it in Shonen Jump. The three main themes of Shonen Jump make most comics tend to be passionate battles. It is not an easy task to make this type of comics accepted by most female readers. And with the recent increase in the number of meat-selling Crystal Palace comics, there are fewer and fewer comics suitable for women to read. If we expect female readers to accept this type of comics, they might as well go to bed early. The main reason why Icarus is able to win the support of most female readers is because her comic Guardian Girl AI not only takes AI's emotional story as the main line, but also combines the characteristics of many young people's passionate fighting in comics. It is indeed a good piece of work. Takahashi Makoto was very surprised about the manga Icarus. This work had never appeared in his previous life, either in reality or in animation. However, since this world can accommodate Takahashi Makoto, the Demon King of plagiarism, it is normal for a young genius cartoonist to be born. Hey! It's a little troublesome to win this duel without getting hurt. Makoto Takahashi rotated the brush in his hand and entered meditation mode facing the blank manuscript paper. Makoto Takahashi is wondering which manga to choose as the trump card in this duel. First of all, we must rule out selling Crystal Palace comics. If you want to attract female readers, this type of comics is definitely taboo. In this kind of comic, it is okay to dig holes to attract hatred, but if it is used for duels, Naruto will probably be eliminated as soon as he is summoned. Next comes the Danbai manga that excludes Fujashi's Beloved. As a cartoonist with professional ethics, Makoto Takahashi does not object to this type of comics, but it is basically impossible for this kind of comics to be serialized in Shonen Jump, and it is estimated that it will cause Koizumi Taro like the ants are counter-attacking, so forget it. So, after screening, are these the only comics left for selection? Makoto Takahashi listed the names of several comics on the manuscript paper with a pen, but his eyebrows were full of tangles. But as an ace, you can't choose at will. And if you want to draw excellent comics, you must at least incorporate love and soul. Hey, I shouldn't have agreed to this troublesome duel in the first place. Master, Mr. Yoshida is here. Sebastian glanced at the name of the comic on the manuscript paper and did not express any opinion. Instead, he asked Makoto Takahashi curiously, Master, what about the comic duel between you and Miss Iris? Do I need to inform Mr. Yoshida about this? My familiar cat will definitely fall into a state of panic, so let's forget it, although his horrified expression is very interesting. Makoto Takahashi casually pulled a piece of white paper and covered the manga names listed on the paper. Took out the previously completed comic manuscript from the drawer. As usual, Yoshida came to Takahashi Makoto's house to pick up the manga manuscript. After carefully flipping through the manga manuscript of this issue, Yoshida sighed helplessly, looking at Makoto Takahashi, who was a little distracted over there, and wanted to say something, but finally shook his head and took out a picture from his bag. Questionnaire. Is this your contract of betrayal? Makoto Takahashi looked at the form filled with words in Yoshida's hand. A pleased smile appeared on his face. Do you finally want to sign a contract with His Majesty the Demon King and become a magic uncle? Well, although you are a little older and cannot perform gorgeous and shameful transformations, this will not affect your ability to become a peerless master. This is the review list. Yoshida's mouth twitched several times, but he still suppressed his anger and finished speaking completely. For the review of outstanding newcomer comics every month, Chen, as the serial cartoonist, as this month's special guests, please fill out this form carefully. And wait, outstanding newcomers every month, but what's going on with this name? Makoto Takahashi interrupted Yoshida, pointed to the name Aho Kimenyi on the questionnaire, and looked at him with some confusion. Why are these two guys in it? Huh? In a war with such an obvious outcome, do you still need a referee? With the absolute strength of those two crazy good friends, they will crush the other newcomers participating in the selection into scum. Explain. Here's the thing. Yoshida said as he took out the comics he brought and handed them to Takahashi Makoto. Huh? Is the King of Black Flame also there? While reading the manga, Takahashi Makoto listened to Yoshida narrate the entire incident, especially when he heard the name of the new wife Eiji. A smile appeared on his face. This future timepiece, it's super interesting. Although I've seen it mentioned in the animation before, the real comics look even more exciting. It turns out that this kind of fantasy-themed work is what the gay duo is best at. What about the other comics? I've told you before, Ajumumenha's comics can only be reviewed. Halfway through Yoshida's words, he saw Makoto Takahashi filling out the comic review form. Speaking of which, the Magister's assessment will be conducted at the headquarters, right? Makoto Takahashi looked at Yoshida, a glimmer of light flashed in his right eye. Since the invited King of Black Flame will participate then, it would be a good time to take this opportunity, let him be a witness to this duel. Well, I heard Yujiro say that the new wife. Wait, Chen, what you mean by this is, do you want to go too? Yoshida suddenly reacted and looked at Makoto Takahashi in surprise. What about the comics? Don't forget, you are a cartoonist in the series. As an editor, I will never allow you to participate in these activities without drawing comics. There are also duels and so on. Is there something that I don't know about specifically? Well, don't worry about all this. My beloved cat, the time has come. In order to improve my cultivation and understand the way of heaven, I need to go into seclusion for a period of time. Makoto Takahashi looked at the clock on the wall. With an impatient expression on his face, he picked up a yellowed ancient book from the back of the sofa and handed it to Yoshida solemnly. Although I can't transform you into a god of death, nor can I give you a devil fruit, this Sunflower Collection martial arts secret book is also very rare. Learn the killing moves in it, and one day, you will be able to obtain the title of Invincible, and the name of Invincible in the East will be with you. Written in the history books, it will be famous throughout the ages. I always feel that Cheng today. Yoshida was confused by what Takahashi Makoto said. When he walked out of the apartment building where Takahashi Makoto lived, he recalled that there was something wrong with Takahashi Makoto's expression today, as if he was trying his best to hide something. Same. After much hesitation, Yoshida still did not go back to ask, although I am very concerned about it. Cartoonists all have personal privacy, so if you ask rashly, let's forget it. The day of the Magister examination is coming in a blink of an eye. The crystal circuit has been confirmed, the core circuit has been confirmed. Makoto Takahashi checked his equipment and made sure it was correct before he was ready to set off, but he saw Sabas holding an envelope and handing it to him with a smile. Oh, is this time finally here? My long-awaited wish has finally taken a step forward today. Heaven and earth, rejoice, the Demon King's new life has entered a new chapter starting today. Speaking of the young master's choice, it's really. After Takahashi Makoto went out, Sebastian looked at the excitement of being opened in his hands, with a mysterious smile on his face. The Department of Philosophy at Taito University is really a magical choice. Ah! The review process was pretty quick for this one. Just as Takahashi Makoto expected, because of Ajumumenha's participation, the result was no surprise. Yachin Mumanjai crushed the newcomers with an absolute advantage. Although Akin Mumanjai and the two also said that they only participated in the review and not in the awards, but for comics with quite different levels, the unique Akin Mumenha combination made the atmosphere at the scene a bit embarrassing. After finally finishing the review, Takahashi Makoto and Yoshida were stopped by the editor-in-chief. Also stopped was the editor-in-chief of Icarus. Unlike Yoshida, who looked confused, Takahashi Makoto guessed what the editor meant and had a playful smile on his face. Eiji, the new wife, who was about to leave, was overly curious and stayed despite Yujiro's dissuasion. Takahashi Makoto, the manga showdown with Chang's son Iris will start next week. Has this matter been confirmed? The editor looked at Makoto Takahashi with a gloomy face, and what he said surprised Yoshida. Wait a minute, editor-in-chief, what's going on here? Yoshida looked at Makoto Takahashi angrily, and then stared at the editor-in-chief with confusion. What's going on in the comic showdown between Makoto and Iris? The editor of Calamus is a fat uncle who looks like he is easy to bully. The fat uncle editor kindly explained what happened to Yoshida and Eiji Niizuma. Eiji Niizuma looked full of expectation, but Yoshida's face was so troubled that he had no choice but to obtain the full evolution from the mature stage to the ultimate body. Achievements. Well, it's decided. Makoto Takahashi scratched his head and sighed, although I hesitated for a long time when choosing comics before. But as for the Vanguard to fight, I have already decided. The comics I have already completed part of the storyboard, so let's start from the monster era for this duel. Oh! A manga showdown between Mr. Phoenix In and Mr. Iris? It seems very interesting. Can I participate? Please, Mr. Phoenix In, let me participate too. Niizuma Eiji looked at Gao with anticipation. Hashi Makoto bowed to Takahashi Makoto very respectfully. What kind of story will it be in the era of monsters? The so-called Age of Yokai is not a comic, but just the beginning. Makoto Takahashi looked at his new wife Eiji, who was full of expectations, with a confident smile on his face. King of Black Flame, don't feel it's a pity that when the monster era ends and we enter the social era, let's have a good time fighting with real swords. So this time, we will have a temporary truce. Monster era? Social era? Listening to these two words, Yoshida showed a surprised expression on his face. Regarding the era of monsters, Makoto Takahashi had mentioned it to him before, but what does the latter social era refer to? Although I am also curious about your so-called two eras. But Takahashi Makoto, have you forgotten one thing? After a moment of silence, the editor-in-chief raised his head and looked at Takahashi Makoto. What should we do with the currently serialized Full Metal Alchemist and Higurashi? If you want to serialize a new comic, you have to delay a serialized comic. It's good that you have confidence in your comics. But do you have time to serialize 3 comics at the same time? You should know that Shonen Jump is sold weekly. Do you know what this means? This means that the number of comic drafts you have to complete every week is equivalent to the number of comics completed by other cartoonists in a month. Serializing 3 comics at the same time, this sounds a bit difficult. Takahashi Makoto smiled, but Commander, you seem to have calculated wrong. I just serialized them at the same time. Only 2 comics are serialized. Regarding the comic Higurashi, during this period, I have been in the Demon King awakening mode. After consuming a lot of resurrection coins, I have completed the storyboard, plus the ones used to seal the mouth before. In fact, Higurashi is already completed. Although you sound very reasonable, whether the comics are serialized or not still needs to go through the serialization meeting. The editor-in-chief thought for a moment and said, perhaps serializing 3 comics at the same time is a bit unfair to other cartoonists, but comics can be serialized as long as they are interesting. This is the principle we have always adhered to. Oh, thank you very much, Commander. Takahashi Makoto showed a happy smile on his face. Then starting next week, let us happily enter the monster era. I am very sorry that I have been using one update at a time during this period. If I don't have time to reply to book reviews, I hope that all readers will forgive me. That's all. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A middle school cartoonist. Author, MaleProtagonist email. Chapter 99. Sure enough, they are all ordinary people. After Makoto Takahashi walked out of Ueshe, an inexplicable smile appeared on his face. His Majesty the Demon King can predict the future, and you are not the mortals who can speculate. Cheng, wait. Yoshida quickly caught up with Takahashi Makoto and blocked the way. Although the editor-in-chief promised you that after the serialization of Han-chan is over, your new comic can be serialized, but what happened to the monster era? What's wrong? This seems different from what you said before. My familiar cat, your level and authority are not enough to query this information. Makoto Takahashi crossed his hands and made a forbidden gesture. If you want to know the details, please sign a contract to become a lower-class pet of the Demon King, and then only by working hard to level up and become a first-level soldier leader under the Demon King can you have access to such restricted information. Yoshida suppressed his anger, and after a moment of silence, he compromised with Makoto Takahashi. Well, since you don't want to talk, I won't continue to ask. Wise choice. Although the battle has not improved much, my IQ has improved a lot. Seeing you like this, I feel very relieved. Makoto Takahashi nodded with satisfaction, his tone full of relief. In this case, let me make an exception and tell you some good news. Good news. Yoshida's face was not surprised, but full of doubts. Especially looking at the triumphant expression on Makoto Takahashi's face, Yoshida had no expectations for the so-called good news. The age of monsters and the age of society are actually just the beginning. Makoto Takahashi showed a strange expression on his face, and laughed conspiratorially in a low voice. There will be 2 more eras after that. The construction of 4 eras will be a long process. After completing the summons of the 4 eras, all preparations will be completed. At that time, I will embark on the path of slaying gods and attaining enlightenment. The devil returns in triumph. Sure enough, it's still the same as before. Yoshida shook his head helplessly, looking at Makoto Takahashi's retreating figure. I can't communicate normally at all. Just a few days after the review meeting, the day for Takahashi Makoto to enter college finally arrived. Makoto Takahashi is carrying a shoulder bag. Because of his one-eyed dragon shape wearing an eye patch, he is very eye-catching, and many onlookers have gathered around him. Many people's eyes showed surprise and enthusiasm. They must have recognized Makoto Takahashi, the manga artist Shoin Kuma, right? After all, Makoto Takahashi's one-eyed and middle-aged image in the TV talk show has been remembered by many readers. By the way, the one-eyed boy who appears frequently on the street recently is the root of his sins because he excessively worships the manga artist Hohoin Kosin. Is this the legendary Imperial Capital Magic Academy? Is this ordinary building really a disguise because of the opening of the external barrier? And Takahashi Makoto was very dissatisfied with the people watching around him. Although in high school, I had experienced the trial of being stared at by many female classmates, but being watched and made unable to move, this has exceeded Makoto Takahashi's limit. With a dangerous smile on his face, Takahashi Makoto slowly stretched his hand to his waist, carrying the wooden sword. Huh? That man in a white coat. Makoto Takahashi suddenly stopped moving and focused his eyes on a man in a white coat. The man was about 30 years old, handsome in appearance, and exuding an elegant temperament. This feeling is correct. That guy is indeed not a mortal being. As if aware of Makoto Takahashi's gaze, the middle-aged man put down the book in his hand, raised his head, looked at Makoto Takahashi, nodded slightly, showed a friendly smile, and then continued to read with his head down. From the perspective of this middle-aged man, the things happening around him are completely unattractive compared to the book in his hand. Are you the manga artist Hohoin Kuma? A bold girl suddenly walked up to Takahashi Makoto, her face full of surprise and expectation, her eyes twinkling like stars. I was on TV before, I've seen you online, and I like your comics the best, Mr. Phoenix Academy. By the way, my name is. Let's talk about this kind of thing later. The first thing to do now is. Makoto Takahashi just smiled friendly at the girl in front of him, quickly squeezed out of the crowd, and came to the middle-aged man. After observing it carefully, his tone was full of provocation. You are wearing a white coat, your age does not match the disguise of a college student, and you are holding a book of law in your hand. With this kind of attire, you are indeed a scientific person, a member of the science side. In response to Takahashi Makoto's misleading words, the middle-aged man closed the book in his hand and raised his head to look at Takahashi Makoto. I'm just an associate professor of physics at Taito University. Humph. Associate professor of physics? Stop trying to deny it. Makoto Takahashi was stubborn and talked to himself. Although this kind of attire can hide people from the outside world, it is invisible to people in the other world. It's very easy to identify. Both the science side and the magic side are the targets of the Demon King's conquest. Once they meet, they will fight to the death, so tell your name and fight happily. What is the magic side? Although I don't understand it at all, do you think there is magic in this world? It's really an interesting statement. The middle-aged man stood up, with a gentle smile on his face, and asked Gao Gao Chiaocheng, stretched out his right hand. Hello, my name is Yukawa Manabu. Can you tell me in detail about the magic side? My name is Phoenix in Fierce, the Demon King of Healing Love, and a cartoonist full of madness. As Takahashi Makoto spoke, he also stretched out his right hand, with a look of surprise on his face. I see, there are no annoying markings on your body. It seems that you belong to the liberal faction. In this case, the hostility can be lifted. Do you think magic exists in this world? Manabu Yukawa looked at Makoto Takahashi with a curious look on his face. In the process of development, human beings lack knowledge of unknown things, so they will treat phenomena they don't understand. Everything is attributed to the existence of monsters and magic. But modern science has explained a lot about these unknown phenomena. In the final analysis, there is no evidence to prove their existence. It cannot prove whether it exists, and it cannot deny its existence. It is wrong to advocate science and deny all unreasonable existences. This kind of superstitious scientific idea is wrong. Life is like a circle. The more you know, the more you are ignorant. Takahashi Makoto was a little surprised by Yukawa Manabu's words, and then a devilish smile appeared on his face. If you want to know the truth, you must pay the corresponding price. Equivalent exchange is the basic law of the world. Exchange of equal value. This is an interesting statement. Manabu Yukawa looked at Makoto Takahashi curiously, and suddenly stretched his head in front of Makoto Takahashi, squinting his eyes and looking at Makoto Takahashi carefully. You should be a student of the school, right? But I don't know this face at all, but I don't know many students in the school. It doesn't matter, so can you tell me more about equivalent exchange? Exchange of equal value is. Takahashi Makoto explained his understanding of equivalent exchange to Yukawa Manabu bit by bit. The latter listened attentively and expressed his own opinions on Takahashi Makoto's understanding from time to time. The topic of conversation between the two gradually changed from equal exchange to some strange knowledge. A second-year middle school patient and a physics professor met each other, and the two fell into a mysterious communication, completely ignoring the more and more people gathering around them. The equivalent exchange you mentioned seems to involve many aspects. Although it feels a bit similar to the law of conservation, the issue of the soul also includes religion and theology. Regarding this aspect, although the scientific community I have also made some suggestions, and I have been involved in some of them, but my research is not very deep. When Yukawa Manabu was about to say something else, his phone suddenly rang. Looking at his phone, Yukawa Manabu showed a look of regret on his face. Although I really want to continue discussing this issue with you, I don't have enough time. I'm also sorry to say it. Makoto Takahashi was also a little regretful. For the scientist with strong curiosity in front of him, Makoto Takahashi felt like he was discovering his compatriots. The Imperial Capital Magic Academy actually has a sage like you. It is just like the rumors, it is a place where dragons and tigers are hidden. Then let's do this for now. Yukawa Manabu was about to leave, but after walking a few steps, he turned back to Takahashi Makoto. I'm in the 13th Laboratory of Physics, Phoenix Institute Murama, looking forward to meeting you. An exchange. This Professor Yukawa Manabu is really awesome. Makoto Takahashi looked at Yukawa Manabu's retreating figure with a hint of admiration on his face. Although this is the base camp of the science side, any professor can be so cruel. It seems that I underestimated the Imperial City Magic Academy too much before. Although it was just about equivalent exchange at the beginning, but then it involved soul travel, parallel worlds, the superposition of the two-dimensional world and the three-dimensional world. It not only involves physics and chemistry, but also involves theology, philosophy, and religious knowledge. Manabu Yukawa was also a little surprised about the second-year student Makoto Takahashi, and according to him, he is just a cartoonist. A cartoonist, but he has knowledge in all aspects, and many of his views are very novel. Tisk tisk tisk, these students are really amazing. This is the first encounter between a middle school cartoonist and a certain Frankenstein. But the way the two gods communicate has nothing to do with Yoshida. 3 days later, when Yoshida came to collect the manga manuscript, he gained a new understanding of how insane Takahashi Makoto was. This unfolds. Yoshida looked at the drawing in his hand, his face a little uncertain. After being silent for a long time, he said viciously to Takahashi Makoto, "It will end like this. You are really cruel, Takahashi Makoto." Ah, readers are ready to send in their blades, and the editorial department is calling, and they are also ready to be tested by the storm. Huh, Makoto Takahashi stopped painting and looked at the comic in Yoshida's hand. A look of surprise appeared on his face, and the corners of his mouth were slightly raised. How about it? The ending of the Kongsha chapter is very loving, isn't it? I love your sister. Yoshida couldn't help but swore and roared angrily. What's going on with this ending? Why did Kiyaki turn into? My beloved is a cat, don't you understand? Makoto Takahashi looked at Yoshida unhappily, with a strange expression on his face. When you do good, you must be apologetic. You must know that the most terrible thing in the world is there is nothing more harmful than doing good to others. Oh, I finally boarded it. I'm a little late tonight, sorry. Is the website falling into a lovelorn period? A certain cat, who had only opened it until now, burst into tears. A middle school cartoonist. Author, MaleProtagonist Mao. Chapter 100. Searched can on Google. Makoto Takahashi turned on the mysterious preaching mode and successfully controlled Yoshida under hypnosis. The ending of the killing chapter of Higurashi was also released while Yoshida was in a trance. In the new issue of Shonen Jump, the title of the final chapter of Higurashi Kongsha chapter was given. Of course, Makoto Takahashi still did not forget the ridicule of a certain girl control. Naturally, there was also a line below, "This is Sly the fate of Boss Mew's sister-in-law." However, compared to the new chapter hanging, Steel is more anticipated by readers, because in the content of the previous chapter, Mustang led his men to fight against the androids. This can be regarded as the first official confrontation between the protagonist and the android in Steel. Because his father runs a bookstore, Yamazaki took advantage of this and saw the newly released comics earlier than many people. For Yamazaki, who loves to sleep in, getting up early is a painful thing, but today is the day when Shonen Jump is released. Yamazaki, who usually sleeps until about 3 o'clock in the morning, got up early this morning and went straight to the magazine district. The new issue of Shonen Jump is finally here. Yamazaki turned directly to the serialization part of Steel and muttered, "This week has been really difficult. Lord Phoenix Academy controls the plot of Steel. How evil. The content of this chapter is over when the battle is exciting. This week of suffering is really..." Sure enough, he's just like Glid. Yamazaki looked at the charred Gratoni in the comic, and stood up again unscathed, with an expression on his face as expected. This kind of opponent can't be killed, it's really confusing. But the title of this chapter seems to be Death of the Undead, How to Kill This Gratoni. While a group of people were chasing Barry's lost soul and body, Al, who was investigating the cause of Hugh's death, suddenly appeared and joined the chasing team. The group of people exchanged information during the chase. When Al learned from Hawkeye that Gratoni also had a tattoo of a snake on his body, revealing the fact that Gratoni was also an artificial human. When everyone chased them to the 3rd Research Institute of the military department, they stopped. Mustang's political sense is extremely sensitive, and he immediately realized that the whole thing was involved in the high strategy of the military department, and even said that he wanted to use this to blackmail the top military officials. It's really a good harvest this time. Retreat. Mustang's speech in the comic left Yamazaki speechless. Could it be that he really retracted it? Things have already progressed to such an extent that they actually said they would not fight. How could such a thing happen? In the comics, Barry was also very dissatisfied and rushed in directly, and Mustang also took the opportunity to enter the 3rd Research Institute. After that, the 4 of them split up. Al and Hawkeye went to one side together, while Mustang and Habak went to the other side. Later, Mustang and Habak met an acquaintance, Habak's new girlfriend. The artificial human Rust, whose alias was Solaris, suddenly appeared in front of the 2 of them and attacked them. Rust first broke the drain pipe, making Mustang unable to perform flame alchemy. Then he took advantage of the spear and launched a fierce attack. In addition, as an android, he completely ignored the 2 attacks. It was not so much a battle. It might as well be said that the two of them were completely suppressed and the rhythm was one-sided. Hey, 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 if this continues, Colonel and the others will be killed. Yamazaki looked at the two people in trouble in the comic and swallowed unconsciously. Although he knew it was a comic, he still couldn't help it. He became nervous and worried. The opponent is immortal, and as long as the Colonel is in a humid environment, he is completely incompetent. This kind of rhythm is completely tortured and killed. With a large amount of water, it can be decomposed to produce a large amount of oxygen and hydrogen. Mustang put on the gloves engraved with alchemical formations, showed a confident smile on his face, and activated alchemy on the floor that already had a lot of water. And Habak also took out the lighter and threw it into the room. It seems that if you want to become an alchemist, you need to learn chemistry well. Looking at the close-up of the explosion scene in the comic, Yamazaki nodded belatedly. The mixture of hydrogen and oxygen will be ignited when it encounters an open flame, and in such a closed room, there may even be an explosion. These are considered common sense knowledge. Although Yamazaki had always thought that alchemy was equivalent to magic, looking at Mustang's use of chemistry now, it makes him refreshing. It turns out that the so-called alchemy is not just fantasy, it also contains certain scientific knowledge. But Colonel is really cruel, such a beautiful woman. Looking at the comics, the two people have confirmed the death of Rust. Yamazaki was a little speechless. Although he agreed with Colonel's approach, but regarding the fact that Colonel killed someone cruelly, there are still some complaints. You must know that in the entire metal, there are not many beautiful female characters. Now that Lust is dead, it means that this eye-catching female character will no longer be able to appear. However, the unfolding of the plot next left Yamasaki completely stunned. Lust did not die, but severely injured Habak. Mustang wanted to remove the Philosopher's Stone from Lust's body and use it to treat Habak. Unexpectedly, Lust completed the double combo again. I'm sorry, although you are also a candidate for the Jinhatsu, please die here. Rast did not kill Mustang, but after severely injuring Mustang, he tore Mustang's gloves. Watch your subordinates gradually become cold under your eyes, and then you will follow him into the underworld. Colonel Mustang is actually a candidate for the Jinhatsu. Yamazaki looked at Rast's meaningless words, and a puzzled look appeared on his face. By the way, isn't it like Naruto, with a nine-tailed fox sealed in his body? Although the alchemy in Full Metal Alchemist looks a bit fantasy, it is a pseudoscience after all. Nine-tailed fox monsters should not appear. Rast finally caught up with Al and Hawkeye, and also found Barry, whose soul was fixed on the armor. For Al's presence at the scene, Rast complained helplessly that he had to kill two candidates for the two pillars in one night. And when Rast saw that Al could directly launch alchemy without engraving the alchemy array, he was even more angry and said that Al had been confirmed to become a Jinhatsu. Seeing this, Yamazaki vaguely understood what the pillar meant, but he didn't think much about it, but continued to read, because the battle in the comics has reached the most intense level. I'm tired of watching others die, too much. Al's armor was broken by Rast, but Al did not retreat, but stood in front of Hawkeye to protect her. I won't let anyone get killed again. I will definitely protect you. Looking at Al's scarred armor in the comics, Yamazaki was completely shocked. Al, who usually looks like a good boy, faced the invincible android Rast, and did not abandon Hawkeye and run away alone at this time, but carried out his determination to protect with actions to the end. Well said, Alphonse Elric. In Full Metal Alchemist, Yamazaki likes the character of Al very much. Although there is not much description of Al in normal times, in this episode, Al's handsomeness is fully displayed. Yamazaki shouted excitedly, and a voice of praise also appeared in the comics. Al activated alchemy and erected a huge wall in front of him, and then Rast was surrounded by a sea of fire. Holding a lighter, his clothes were open and his wounds were exposed. Colonel Mustang stood firm with a firm face. The attack just now was really from his hands. Use flint as a fire, and use your own blood to draw an alchemy array. Like Rast, Yamazaki's face flashed with a trace of surprise. No way, wasn't the colonel seriously injured before? How come he still has the ability to stand up now? I burned the wound to stop the bleeding. Mustang covered his injured part, although I fainted 2 or 3 times in the middle. Burn the wound to stop the bleeding. Seeing Colonel Mustang, he actually thought of using fire to burn the wound to stop the bleeding. Yamazaki's mouth twitched wildly. He had been burned before, and his body had a deep understanding of that kind of pain. He was able to hold on after fainting 2 or 3 times, and he is still fighting now. Even though I know the comics are not real, Colonel Mustang is really handsome. Under Mustang's repeated burning, Loss could no longer bear it. Holding on to the last bit of strength, Loss launched a final counter-attack against Mustang, and at the same time, Mustang also used his specialty, fire alchemy. The comics gave a close-up, with Loss' hands turned into sharp spears, and the tip of the spear was only a little distance away from Mustang's eyes, while Mustang, holding a lighter, stood there unmoved, looking extremely handsome. I lost, but it's not bad to be killed by a man like you. Loss's charred body began to carbonize and disappear. That unhesitating look, I'm really looking forward to it. The day when it is twisted by suffering, will soon. It's rare for this time that the Phoenix Academy will draw a battle in one episode. Yamazaki was very happy after reading this episode of Full Metal Alchemist. Flipping 2 pages forward, Yamazaki took out his phone and took a picture of Mustang holding a lighter while covering his wound. The colonel looks really handsome like this. I want to. Putting down the comic, Yamazaki imitated Mustang, holding his abdomen with his left hand and holding the lighter on the table with his right hand, making this pose he thought was very handsome. And this scene was also seen by Yamazaki's father, who had just entered the room. Looking at his son's weird behavior, Yamazaki's father closed the door with a stern expression on his face, and didn't say a word from beginning to end. Yamazaki just raised his hand, wishing there was a crack in the ground to crawl into. Mustang's handsome pose in Full Metal Alchemist made many fans of Full Metal Alchemist excited, especially Mustang's handsome first blood of the android, which made many readers exclaim with excitement. But for fans of Higurashi, Makoto Takahashi, whose pen name is Fengguangai Yuankuma, has become the equivalent of the Big Devil. Because the new issue of Weekly Shonen Jump not only contains a new episode of Full Metal Alchemist, but also the ending of the Higurashi arc.